Hi, everybody. It is around 6:30 on Tuesday, April 19th, and this is a North Tabor Neighborhood Association meeting. I'm CJ, and then we're joined today by two folks speaking from the City Charter Commission. We've got Gloria and Bryan, so please take it away.
Awesome. Well, hi, all. My name is Gloria Cruz. I'm a commissioner with the Portland Charter Commission. I am very excited to be here with you today. We're going to have a little presentation, and then hopefully we can get to some Q&A if y'all have any questions about what's going on in the process right now. And I think Bryan's going to share, and then Bryan, we didn't have a chance to connect beforehand, but I assume Bryan will just split it up, evenly, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Cool. Well, have at it.
All right, so we've got about a 30-minute or so presentation that will hopefully dispel a few things about the Charter Commission, processes, and the work that we've done up to date. We've given this to about, oh my goodness, I want to say 83 different organizations thus far. And I'm really excited that you're going to be a part of it. And let me see. This is my first time having done this. What can you folks see right now?
We can see your whole little presentation window and your whole browser window.
If you want
to on slideshow, you've got it on. You want to do it? Yeah, probably that presentation slideshow, whatever.
There we go.
That looks better. It's dark right now, but I think that's right.
Perfect.
There you go.
Are you able to see the notes, Bryan, from that?
I cannot.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and just present, and then I will start off.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. So a city charter is a guiding document that establishes the government system and structure of a city. It functions as our city's constitution, and it creates the city as a legal entity. It authorizes city powers. It outlines basic broad fundamentals of city government. So our city charter allows Portland to decide how our government is set up, how we vote for our city leaders, the roles of our elected leaders, and what they're responsible for doing. Charters, like constitutions, are meant to be short documents. They're not meant to be extremely outlined, and they don't need frequent amendments. So the city charter can only be amended by a vote from the people, or of the people. So if we, next slide. So the city's charter requires at least once every 10 years that the city council appoints a charter commission to review and recommend changes to the charter. And the city council has appointed the current charter commission in December of 2020. And it has been 10 years since the previous charter review. So the charter commission is responsible for reviewing the charter and recommending any changes. And this process is called the charter review process. So the city council appoints 20 Portlanders to serve as charter commissioners. And here are the Portlanders that make up your commission. And so if there's something that isn't working for our communities, how can we make changes to the city charter? So next slide, Bryan.
Thank you.
All right, so here's an image of how the commission's authority works. There are 20 charter commissioners. If 15 or more of them agree to a recommendation, then those recommendations go directly to the ballot for Portlanders to vote on. So if a majority of them agree to the change, but less than 15, then those recommendations go to the city council. The city council could then decide to refer them to the ballot or as they are, or they could modify them, or they could do nothing. So again, it's only by a vote of Portlanders that the charter can be changed. The Charter Commission has unique authority to refer charter changes directly to the ballot. So a city council has say over the commission's recommendations so long as the supermajority of the Charter Commission agree to reform. So that takes us to the next slide. And this is a charter review. Can you advance there, Bryan? Awesome, thank you. The charter review timeline. So this is a timeline of our work, and the Charter Commission chose to approach the charter in 2 phases. That means that there's 2 sets of issues, 2 reports, and 2 election cycles. The first phase that we are now in is focused solely on form of government and city council elections. The second phase will start in the summer of this year and will include a new set of issues. In phase 1, we're working to engage Portlanders in discussions about the form of government, the city council elections, and we intend to refer ballot measures in late June. So reforms can be on this November's ballot. So that's important. The Charter Commission is also looking to hear what other issues beyond the form of government and city council elections the commission should explore. So you can think of what's important to you and share those ideas at any point in this process tonight or any other point. So the next slide. So the desires for outcomes for the charter reform. The commission spent time articulating its desired outcomes. Oh, I think that we actually advanced 1 slide too many. No? Huh. Okay. It looks like my slide has a different one. Go ahead and advance to the next slide, Bryan. Yeah, okay. So the engagement by the numbers. The important work the charter reform requires is engaging with Portlanders across neighborhoods, different lived experiences and different backgrounds. The Charter Commission is committed to a community-driven process to inform its decision-making and an equitable, accessible, and transparent community engagement process. So we've partnered with various community-based organizations to support the design and the implementation of community education, engagement activities to meaningfully engage with Portlanders like you. On the screen, you can see a snapshot of some of our engagements to date. So we've hosted 26 community listening sessions. We've received over 1,200 public comments and had almost 90 briefings like this one. So we've done lots of engagement, and we are planning to do more in the coming month. So the next slide, Bryan, is current form of government and city council elections. So now that was a little bit about a little bit more about the charter review process. We're going to switch gears and talk about our phase 1 issues. So form of government and city council elections, and then the reforms that we're prioritizing now. So I'll spend a couple of minutes going over our current form of government and our city council elections, and then expand on what we're proposing. So next slide. So this is a picture or an image of the commission form of government like Portland's. So Portland is the only large city in the whole US that has a commission form of government. In the commission form of government, the mayor and the commissioners share executive, legislative, and quasi-judicial authority. So city bureaus are directly managed by individual commissioners or the mayor. The mayor assigns bureaus to themselves and to city commissioners. The commissioner in charge can appoint and remove bureau directors. So the mayor and city commissioners have a huge administrative role in this current system. They run the city's bureaus and offices, and they help carry out the laws. So the biggest difference between power of the mayor and the city commissioners is that the mayor decides which bureaus each commissioner will run and can also assign bureaus to themselves. So an example is Ted Wheeler assigned himself as the Portland Police Bureau and assigned Commissioner Mingus Maps to the Bureau of Environmental Services. So that takes us to the next slide. And Portland's current council elections. So this is I'll provide an overview of the current elections. The word constituency refers to the people in an area a leader represents. In Portland, the mayor and the 4 city commissioners are elected at large, and that means citywide. So the open seats for city commissioners are marked positions 1 through 4, and each candidate decides which position to run for. Then voters choose only one candidate for each position. The mayor and the commissioners for positions 1 and 4 are elected in presidential years, and the auditor and the commissioners for positions 2 and 3 are elected in midterm elections. So in our current voting system, the candidate that receives the most votes wins. A candidate might win the majority of votes, so anything over 50%, or they might even win if they get less than 50% of the votes. So Portland has both a primary election in May and a general election in November. If a candidate receives the majority of the votes cast in the primary, then they just win instantly. If no candidate wins at least 50% in the primary, then the candidates with the highest number of votes cast appear in the general election in November. So that takes us to this next slide. And so the proposal to reform Portland's elections and form of government. So on March 31st, the Charter Commission reached a pretty key milestone, preliminarily agreeing on a package of reforms to advance to voters. So we were really excited about this. All 20 of us supported the package, which would recommend 3 major changes. So first, allowing voters to rank candidates in order of their preference using ranked choice voting. Second, 4 new geographic districts with 3 members elected to represent each district, expanding the city's council to a total number of 12 members. And then lastly, a city council that focuses on setting policy and a mayor elected citywide to run the city's day-to-day operations, with, of course, help from a professional city administrator. So these are the 3 big things that we have on in the reform package. So that takes us to the next slide. And the government structure that the Charter Commission advanced is a mayor council structure. One of the key changes is that the city council will no longer manage the city's bureaus. They won't do that directly. Instead, the city council will be they'll be the primary lawmaking body and focus on setting policy. This will free up the city councilors to have more time to interact with community, to listen to their needs, and to fix the city's challenges, both long and short term. In the mayor council government, the mayor will serve as the executive role of the city. And that means that they will help carry out the laws and supervise the city administrator who manages the bureaus. A non-elected city administrator is nominated by the mayor and approved by city council, which will fulfill the city administrative's responsibilities like managing the bureaus and delivering services to Portlanders. In this model, it is clear that the separation of legislative, executive, and administrative responsibilities and checks and balances is provided with help to create so all of this is to help create a more effective government that is accountable to Portlanders. That was definitely one of our goals. So advancing to the next slide. Multi-member districts. So the second major part of this proposal is multi-member districts. A district, again, is an area in which an elected leader represents the people who live there. As a voter, you can only vote for the candidates running who represent your district. A multi-member districts are a type of district model in which more than one elected leader represents each district. Our package of reforms currently includes a model with 4 geographic districts and 3 council members to represent each district, which would expand on the city council size to again, 12 council members. Multi-member districts increase collaboration between elected leaders representing each district by bringing diverse perspectives from each elected leader who may represent various parts of that district. Geographic communities are not a monolith. It's important to recognize that additional identities shape the interests and lived experiences of residents from one specific area. 10 states in the United States have at least one congressional chamber that uses multi-member districts. That's Arizona, New Jersey, South Dakota, and Washington. They all use multi-member districts to elect all state House members. The Charter Commission will not propose a formal district map for adoption, but rather the commission envisions a community-involved process where there is an appointed community body to draw and implement district lines. That brings us to the next slide. And ranked choice voting. So the first major part of the proposal is ranked choice voting, or RCV. Ranked choice voting is a voting method that gives voters one vote and allows voters to rank the candidates in order of their own preference. In the example you see, candidates are being ranked on a scale between 1 and 5. Using ranked choice voting, voters can express their true preference for who they want to represent them. If your first choice does not win, you have other candidates that your vote can count towards. So if a candidate B, in this instance, was eliminated in this scenario, your vote would count for the next choice candidate, which is candidate C. This reduces the number of wasted votes since voters can see their vote counted for another candidate that represents their values and their interests. Research has proven that voters feel like they have more choices and are more satisfied with the overall outcome. As of November 2021, 43 jurisdictions used choice voting in their most recent elections. So there's a strong argument in favor of choice voting. It is proven and it's been tested on a large scale. And some of that, an example would be Benton County in Oregon, here in Oregon, or something as large as New York City. So another core benefit to ranked choice voting is that it allows for decisions in one election, eliminating the need for May primaries or city elections. And eliminating the May primaries ensures that more Portlanders can elect their city council during one election where there's a higher voter turnout. So that will then take us to the next slide where we go over phase 1 timeline. So here's our phase 1 timeline from now through the ballot referral in late June. So the city's attorney's office is currently drafting charter amendment language now. once they receive, once the commission receives drafted language, the commission will host a series of public hearings. And we have those basically throughout May. And that's where Portlanders are able to provide input. And something else I'll say here is that there are some workshops being done now by some community-based organizations to help folks like you go through the process and how to provide testimony. So we could give you that information at the end of this presentation. But then the final amendment package will be voted on in June before the official referral to the ballot for November. And then, so that takes us to the last slide here. And these are all of the ways you can engage with us and this process. So we want you to stay engaged with the process, and here are just a plethora of ways in which you can do that. And so, like I said, we have, I think it's the Coalition of Communities of Color, and they have, let me see here. Take me back to my email for a second. I believe they have something on the 26th that they are doing. And Bryan, if you happen to know off the top of your head, I get so many emails in here. You know what we'll do though is I'll look for this information. I'll post it in the chat. But really after that, after this slide, we could just open it up for some Q&A. So does anybody have any questions? And let's see, I don't know, Bryan, thank you so much for helping me with that. But if you want to take it down, I'd love to see y'all, your faces. Thanks, Bryan. And yeah, I mean, opening it up for any questions or comments.
Really hokey.
Yeah.
I got my hand up.
You do.
Looks
Okay.
like Robert.
Okay. Was that Robert first?
Yeah, I just have a few. These are kind of mechanical questions, and maybe these are things that haven't been worked out yet. In this system, is the mayor a pure executive, like he'd have a veto over things passed by the council, or would he like vote with him to break ties? What's his relationship to the 12 counselors?
Yes. So the mayor is going to have executive authority, and we have proposed a package that would not allow the mayor to have veto power.
Okay, but he would be able to vote. Would he have a vote along with them, or?
That's another part of how we've structured it, and no, and that really is because we want checks and balances in this system. We really do want the mayor to be an executive, meaning they're going to carry out the policy. They're carrying out the laws, and we really want city councilors to be the lawmaking body.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to have access to community in a way in which they don't currently, which means that, the expectation there is that there's a higher level of engagement and being able to truly understand the different challenges that each different community has. And so really the mayor is, along with the city administrator, carrying out those.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you have an even number of commissioners, so if you had a tie, is that a not pass, or, I mean, it's kind of in the weeds there, but how do you do a tie?
Yeah, by process. So we would say that is another thing that we actively had conversation around. And the way that we saw it is that it's incentive, right, for city councilors to engage with each other and come to agreement around those issues. And if there was not a, if you didn't have majority, then it would die.
Yeah. So, I mean, that
meaning the bill would die, or
yeah. I mean, in the Congress, And the Congress is a little bleed over from the executive to the legislative where the vice president can break a tie.
Yes.
But, you don't maybe need to get into that kind of thing. I'm not going to try to dominate things here. I just had a couple of other questions. Are you going to require the counselors to live in the district that they represent? That's come up in the current congressional thing because some of the candidates don't live in their district. So they would have to live in the district.
That's correct.
Okay. And then with 3 in a district, are you going to have terms? If you have terms of 4 years in length, then some years you're going to be voting on 2 of them, and in other years you're going to be voting on 1 of them. Or you can have 6-year terms where you do one every 2 years.
Bryan, you help me out here. I think it's every it would be in off years is what we've proposed. Is that right?
Well, there's been some discussion as to possibly having different districts segmented where 2 districts would be having elections for their representatives during presidential years, and others having them go during off years, quote unquote years.
So that all 3 be elected at the same time.
At the same exact time, yes, sir.
It's
yes.
possible, right? And it's also possible. I mean, in theory, yes, it is possible that a new slate of 3 is elected every time. But
so since you're doing ranked choice, I mean, you're going to have District 1, position A, position B, and position C, and you're going to have a slate of candidates for each of those? Or are you going to take, since people have their choices, are you just going to take the top 3 and give them each a seat? I mean, can a person only run for 1 of the seats within the district? I know this is in the weeds, but this is the kind of stuff.
Yeah, not necessarily. They're not necessarily choosing a specific seat in the district. They're really, it would be if voters are able to vote specific for their district. They're going to rank their top choices, and the top 3 ranked candidates are going to advance.
Okay, so the top 3 in a single slate, the top 3 each get a seat. Got it. Okay. That's all my questions.
Yeah, the math is a little more complicated.
Yeah.
But in terms of keeping this simple so that we can all be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to articulate it.
Thanks, Robert. I thought I saw Lisa Maddox here. Was your hand up earlier? And we'll get to the Kim.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I was first or Kim was.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
I had a couple questions. Did you say that the mayor appoints the city administrator?
So the mayor would nominate a city administrator, but the city council would have to agree on that vote. So they would have to confirm the vote.
Okay, because I don't want his good old boy.
Right. So that's where we were really trying to be thoughtful in the checks and balances.
Okay.
Where we have both branches kind of contributing to that.
Okay. And the only other thing I wanted to ask about were there only 1,210 public comments?
Let me pull
in that one slide
up again. That's a great question. It looks like there were public comments received was 1,210. So
so in a city of 1 million, yeah, that's like throwing a trunk off the Queen Mary. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
it's not much.
We've definitely been trying to engage in ways in which I'm grateful that you are here today. We've been trying to get the word out as much as possible. And that's, that doesn't include, excuse me, I'm just looking at here.
It doesn't include any of the conversations or seminars that our partners, our numerous community partners have engaged in. Nor any of the stakeholder meetings like this that we've put on. We've had 82 or so of those. I mean, so that number can be a little misleading, right? That has more to do with like written testimony that we've received from the public. And as valuable as that is not the only testimony we've received.
Yeah, great question though. And then Kimbra, or I was there something else, Lisa, or?
No, those were the only 2 things I had. Thank you.
Awesome. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump up to Lars and Kimbra And
So
this-
I did have a question. I had a couple questions. One was I have a friend who lives in Spokane and they have a charter commission too, or a commission form of government. And so does Bismarck, North Dakota. And there's more cities, just so you know. I mean, and my concern is
did you say
that
Spokane?
this form of government has existed in Portland since 1913, and Portland was very functional and thriving until about 5 years ago. So my concern is doing the whole way of government when we had a system that was working very well. And my question also, as Lisa had, was if the mayor is kind of selecting the person that he's going to put into office, I don't like the idea that just the city council is voting on it. Why can't the entire city vote on it? And one other thing I wanted to say is that I've been very involved in the government process of the city, and I've only seen one kind of announcement about this, the 89 meetings that you guys had. I did see one like in April, but that's the only one I've seen. And so I'm wondering how many people and how are you not advertising, but informing our population? If you've only got 4,000, a little over 4,000 surveys and only 1,200 comments, everything you're saying sounds really good, but you're starting a whole new process when we've had a process that worked very well. And so I just have a lot of concerns because it doesn't sound, and maybe like Robert said, this is all getting into the weeds of things because maybe not all these little points matter, but I think they do because okay, if you're going to have 3 for each district and we don't know how long they're going to serve and we don't know how how they're going to transition and we don't know how that's going to work with the other, it just sounds like a lot of new information. And I feel like and maybe none of this matters right now because it could go to recommendation to the city council and maybe they won't agree and maybe they do and they pass it on to the voters. But I just wonder how informed the voters are going to be. So those are my concerns. And I just wanted to share those and see if you have any kind of information you could reply back about that.
Yeah. I would respectfully disagree, madam. I think that your statements and the opportunity for commissioners like ourselves to be able to engage with the community is vitally important. Part of what's been so disconcerting, especially in the very beginning of this process, is that we spent much of our time talking to experts, people who had fancy degrees and titles and whatnot. And as great and informative as those conversations were, they were academic. They were highbrow, they were philosophical, and they were not grounded in the experience of the people who actually live in this community. And so that's part of why we've spent so much time trying to engage with folks like yourselves and organizations such as this.
I just have one question about that. You said you disagree with me. What did you disagree on specifically? Because I don't know what you're referring to when you say you just respectfully disagree. I'm asking questions. So I just wanted to know, what is it you're disagreeing with? When I say that the city functioned really well until about 5 years ago, or my question about the mayor of kind of selecting the person, I'm not sure what you're disagreeing with.
I would say that the experience of so many Portlanders that we've been lucky enough to talk to would suggest that many of the problems that we have been ongoing for quite some time. I feel very privileged to be a part of this process. I'm from Portland, born and raised, and I've seen like so many of you, I've seen a lot of change, and I've experienced it in a very hard way as a person of color.
Could I,
Bryan, if I could just piggyback on that a little bit. I think
Yeah.
that, so, I mean, one thing is, the city has grown tremendously in the last 100 years. And the city government has not grown proportionately. to the city's population. And so if you look at major cities like Portland that are comparable in size, many of them have much more represented elected leaders. So that's definitely one of the things that I maybe would see as a little bit of a difference, is as we were established as 5, and I couldn't tell you right now what the population was back in the early 1900s, but 5 probably felt proportional then, and it definitely doesn't feel like enough. And I think what we're hearing really is the way that it's set up now, elected officials don't really have the ability to engage with community and truly hear issues that are present in their communities, because taking care of bureaus is a full-time job. And so when it's a city administrator is solely that is their profession, that is they're trained in understanding that type of bureaucracy. They understand these different types of complexities that these bureaus have. I think that there's a lot of processes that can be condensed and
So
a
that
lot
was
of,
one of my questions.
Yeah,
Was
so
not the administrator, was just that if the mayor's
Yes,
appointing
I was-
this person and it's not going to a vote, that's one of my concerns. And I just want to say one more thing and then I'll stop. But we used to have neighborhood associations like we have now, but they had much more say and much more power. And that was taken away in the last, Robert could say better than me maybe, but it's been at least the last 5 years, maybe 10. And so that used to represent each individual neighborhood. And so my concern, as I said before, is that we're starting all over again when we did have a system that worked well before they took away a lot of the voice of the neighborhood association.
I'll speak to
Yes,
those
and
2
so
points though, if you wouldn't mind. I'll speak to those 2 points. One is the mayor is not appointing it. You're simplifying it a little bit, I think, a bit too much. The mayor is nominating somebody, and the city council is confirming them. Now you are choosing as a Portlander, you would be choosing by citywide election your mayor. That way you can hold the mayor accountable, because the mayor is accountable for essentially running and carrying out and is ultimately that executive authority. So if you didn't like the mayor's choices, you would have an option to vote them out with your vote, because it would matter. And and that's why we're thinking of setting that up in precisely that way. The other thing that I would say is that, sorry, what was your second point? You were not about nominations, but
about the neighborhood association.
neighborhood
They used to be the
associations, thank
voice
you.
of the
Yeah.
people in their neighborhood
And
until
what we've
the
heard-
until it
what
was
we've
cut off.
heard is that neighborhood associations they've done so much great work in communities. And what we've seen through research, through listening to professionals, is that neighborhood associations can oftentimes not encompass the full spectrum of folks that are living in the communities. And oftentimes what's happening is that some folks are getting displaced to other parts of the city. And so the neighborhood association isn't necessarily the best option at this point to represent that full, the full capacity of what that community might truly represent.
Could I
And
say
so
a few
that's
things that are largely in support of your position
Yeah.
here. And maybe it's easier for me to have this dialogue with one of my neighbors here. First, I did have a question. These are nonpartisan positions, right? We're not
That's
going to
correct.
be running our party labels. Okay.
Right, and that's one of the most important elements, is that so many of the different city managers and associations that represent them that we've had the pleasure of talking to have emphasized to a great deal that these positions have to not be elected, because the moment that they
In partisan.
become partisan,
Yeah.
then we imbue so many different city functions and processes into politics.
So
And it
first,
complicates
just
things greatly.
to clarify to Kim, the city manager is a guy you're hiring. He's not elected official. He doesn't make decisions. All he does is he carries out whatever it is the council tells him to do. So he's an employee. So you don't want to have everybody in the city voting on, a city employee, because that's what he is. He can be fired, and they are fired. And that's a profession. So
He's
you
going to be
hire
at
the guy
will.
to do the job, and if he doesn't do the job well, you fire him and you hire somebody else. The other thing I would say is that what I particularly like about this particular model, and to go back to history a little bit, back in the progressive era in 1913, there were a lot of cities that had this type of government, and one by one, they all abandoned it except for Portland, and we're kind of the last holdout of any kind of big city. And part of the problem is that if you're electing at large, and let's say, and you can divide this along racial lines or religious lines or whatever, but if you've got one group in the majority and they're voting for all the positions, I mean, they're going to get all 5 of them. Whereas in a city where you have, and these are more East Coast cities where you have neighborhoods that are people of color or Polish neighborhoods or Catholic neighborhoods, if you divide it into districts, then there's a better chance that they will get some representation. Now in Portland, where there's not, in my opinion, at least, that sort of a clear geographic distribution, that problem is solved by having 3 people represent the district and having ranked choice. So it could be that, let's say, the majority of people in one of these districts are white people or whatever, but still, because you're doing ranked choice, you're going to get people of color also elected. Maybe they come in, and people don't vote on racial lines. I'm not saying that, but I think that that what is proposed will give a much more diverse city council, and it will be more representative. So I think it's kind of an ideal way to get that type of representation in the city. So I think, I'm very much in favor of this, but yeah, we have a very outmoded form of city government here, and particularly making people who have no managerial experience manage a Bureau of Environmental Services or transportation. It makes absolutely no sense. And I think also that by getting rid of this dispersed administration, we'll save a lot of money on some of these positions, because you'll have one city manager, and then he'll be able to much more efficiently work out, let's say, the budget for these various bureaus, rather than having them stovepiped into each of these 4 different or 5 different commissioners. So personally, I think this is going to be a great improvement. And I do hope that enough people can get to understand it, that it will pass. But it's going to take a lot of education, because for most people, if they don't really understand it, they'll vote no, because they know what they've got and they don't want to go into the unknown. So I hope you're really successful in pushing this through.
Right.
I appreciate that, Robert. Sorry, Bryan. CJ, I
please.
just wanted to check in about
Sure.
time. Like,
Yeah,
and Sarah, I see that you have your hand up, and I just want to make sure that we're good. I'm available for more questions. I don't want to, take the whole meeting. But
Yeah, I think we have enough time if we crunch it for Sarah to ask
Sarah.
a quick answer.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just wondering how length of terms are you guys thinking of for the commissioners? Is it, a 2-year term, 3-year term, 4-year term? I think currently, isn't it a 2-year term?
4.
Or is it 4?
I believe it's 2 for commissioners.
No, it's 4, I think.
No, it's
2.
4.
No,
I
we
thought
don't,
For the mayor.
we don't vote for all the commissioners every election cycle.
Yeah, they rotate and they serve a 2-year term.
They don't serve a 2-year term. If they served a 2-year term, we'd be voting for all of them,
All at the same time.
in 2020.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong.
4-year
It's 2 years. Every 2 years they change, but
Change.
yeah.
So currently it's a 4-year term.
Yeah.
For our commissioners. So are we gonna keep in this model, which I flip and love, by the way, from a history poli-sci major, this is oh my gosh. And I've lived here all my life. I'm 46, and this style of government that Portland has had I believe has not worked in the last 20 plus years, but because we've outgrown we are too big for our britches, and we have been for a long time. to be effective, to have an effective government, to deal with issues that we currently have. But so are we thinking all three who represent a district will be on a 4-year term? Is that something that is going to be proposed?
Yeah, I mean, that was the question that was earlier asked. 4-year terms, all 3 in a district elected on the same year, but not all 4 districts elected at the same time.
Same time?
2 of them
Okay.
on a presidential year. So you'd have 6 commissioners from 2 of the districts elected during a presidential
So it'd
election
be-
year.
It'll
And
be
then there's
half.
6 from the other 2 in the off-year election.
Yeah. So it'll be like half the time will be,
Yeah.
which will be
You'd have
good.
a
Okay.
half potential turnover. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we're really trying to stack a lot of different functions here. I mean,
Right.
as it's been confided in us by several different commissioners and the heads of various bureaus, anyone who comes onto city council, any brand new person, is going to spend at least the first 2 years of their tenure just learning about their bureau.
Exactly. Yes.
Forget leading the bureau, let alone leading it well.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm,
just learning what it does.
mhm.
And that means that they can't focus on doing the lawmaking, on doing the outreach to the community and really championing the things that they care about. And so that's part of why we're trying to build a model that allows for both a focus on the community and deepening the relationship between the elected official and those who are helping to manage various city processes.
And you know, Brian, the last thing I'll add to that is that I think you're all right. This is going to take a lot of education, right? Like people will need to lean in to this, and by all means, if it passes, there is, you know, hitting the ground running from like November 5th, right? Like there is going to be a plan in place to get that education. Like there is definitely that project management piece that will come after that. And I think what I also want to stress is that this isn't some sort of pill that we're going to take and it's all going to get better with a voting of this new package. Like everything will take time. I do believe, though, that the package of reforms that we've put forth will get us to a better place, and I think will be responsive to the needs of Portlanders. I don't think that it's going to happen overnight, but I do believe that we are moving in the right direction. I do feel like we've done this process really thoughtfully, thinking about many different aspects. We've had many long nights where we're arguing with each other and coming at different points of view because we absolutely want checks and balances. We understand that there isn't a perfect system out there. And Portland, it has a very unique set of issues. And I think no matter what way you slice it, I truly believe, and I feel proud of this package, and I think that we are moving in the right direction with it. So I hope that you continue to be engaged, you continue to ask questions, because honestly, we want to hear them. Like there is no bad question. There is no bad point of view. I think that you all are important in this process, and you're Portlanders, and you know, we're very much wanting to hear your feedback. So I appreciate you coming tonight.
It all sounds really good. I just want to reiterate one thing, and that's just about the appointment with the council backing up the administrator. My only concern still, even though all this sounds really good, is that if the mayor, okay, they nominate, the situation is that the people got to vote on the city council that represented the bureaus.
And the
so my
mayor.
concern is that if the mayor just appoints them and then the council goes around, the people have no say. And whether or not we get a vote again in 4 years or whatever to replace it, that just is a concern, because right now they can vote on each of the council people that run the bureaus. So say if you're really concerned in fire and emergency response, you get to pick the person, not exactly, but you get a vote for that person and this administrator. I just wish that that would be one of the things that we could have more of a voice from the people for that position. That's just my concern, and I'm just
Yeah, I
voicing
mean,
it.
I appreciate that. Like, I don't, I think that, that's a valid point of view. I feel like you know, when we're looking at some things where we have some give and take, right? Like what do we really want? We want we want people to be responsive to community. And we feel like a professional administrator is going to be better suited to run bureaus. And by proxy, you are voting for that administrator because you are voting for the mayor.
Plus, if they're doing a crappy job, we can easily, with a media campaign from the public, get them shit canned. Really.
Right.
Instead of waiting for
Yeah.
a couple of years to vote him out of office. So we are hiring somebody as a business manager to do the operational side of business on the city side. And he's an at-will employee. And if he's not doing his job, then we just put our pressure to the commissioners who represent us and tell them to get rid of them and hire somebody new. And we can do that without having to wait years. So I'm all for it. There's my,
I like
two
that.
cents.
I'm glad I think that kind of stuff is the kind of stuff that we
I
can
mean,
be telling people, you know? So,
Right.
I mean, I know they're not going to want to bring out.
I
the
hear what you're
negative,
saying,
but-
though. I hear what you're saying. You that check, that balance
Mhm.
is really important to you. And I hear that, you know, like, and there's lots of things to be balancing when we're moving through these things. So I feel like I've taken a lot of airtime, and so I apologize, Brian.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
yeah.
I'm glad to be doing this with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You guys did a great
Just
presentation.
one thing I'd like to
Take your
just
time.
explain,
It-
Kim, when you're voting for a city commissioner, you're not voting for, you know, Dan Ryan for Parks Commission. Dan Ryan might get elected. It's up to the mayor what bureau he gets. You have no idea what the mayor is going to assign him. He might assign him.
Currently, yes.
You know, he might, and he could
Currently.
pull that any time. So we're not getting to vote on the heads of the bureaus as it is now. So anyway, I hope that kind of clears that up.
And
Yeah.
I'll jump in here because I know we'll have plenty of time to talk amongst ourselves, but I want to respect Gloria and Brian's time because
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was great.
I know. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll continue this
Yeah,
discussion.
thank
If
you.
we have further information, we can submit comments. You had that.
Please do. Yeah,
comment.
please
I will
do.
share it with everyone. So we
I
can.
will email you, CJ. I think Sarah actually was the contact in my
Mhm.
email, but I'll email you what I was referring to earlier in terms of it's a workshop that is being provided by one of our community-based organizations that is helping folks go through the process of providing testimony. And again, we're going to be having lots of opportunity for testimony in May. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
But I'm going to head out. I really appreciate every one of you. So thank you. And,
Yes.
and thanks for being here
Thank
tonight.
you.
thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, hooray.
All right.
Hooray.
Bye now.
Bye bye.
If I may.
Oh, Brian.
Oh,
Kim,
go.
Kimbra, is that how it's pronounced?
It's Kimbra, but you can call me Kim.
So, Kimbra, I would say that I really appreciate the various points that you made. And one of the difficulties that we've had is trying to balance all these different issues. And so some of the things that we've been considering, and not all of them may take place during phase one. We've got a whole nother year that we're going to be dedicating to this process, where we're going to be looking at housing, policing, environmental justice, so many different things. But government transparency and empowering the people through various mechanisms, that's something that we definitely want to champion. And so some of the mechanisms that we're thinking about in the way of holding a city manager responsible in the way that you're getting at is by forms like emboldened, empowered commissions of non-elected officials, and convening those bodies through various lottery systems that make them more like juries and that bring more people into the process who, unlike myself, are not connected politically, and that really do represent a larger swath of the community. We're looking at public budgeting processes where the community would have a much greater say over how it is that the city budget is actually developed, and having a means where the people of Portland would actually have the ability to shape a large portion of the budget and dedicate it to different projects and processes that they really believe in to help pave Portland in a new direction. And then also different quotas, criteria, different standards, whether it be environmental justice or equity or other models that we would actually have the city manager and various bureaus adhere to so that they're living up to certain standards.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's just, yeah, I like hearing more about it. So thank you.
Yeah, and just I would be remiss earlier when I said that I respectfully disagree. I was trying to be nice in saying that it sounded as though you were saying at a certain point we were getting in the weeds, or that your comments didn't matter. And I was trying to refute that they do indeed matter. And part of why I love these kinds of meetings, especially in the evening, is because we get to talk to real people and we get a real sense of what it's like to live in this city and the varied experiences thereof, and not just talking to power brokers and people who represent so much money. Over the last year, that has dominated my day-to-day, and I'm trying so very honestly to not let it influence my own personal processes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to mention this earlier. I got a text. I have to leave at 7:30, which is now. But there was a suggestion that maybe we have. I'd like to at least hear from Dr. Is it Thomasson, Catherine, who is running for a House representative at some point. I will not unfortunately be here. Is my co-person, my co-chair or vice chair is not here at the moment. Robert, are you going to be hanging out?
Yeah, I'll officiate if you need to go.
That would be fantastic. But Bryan, again, thank you so much. And thank you to you and Sarah and Kim for presenting great questions as well. And I would love to see if we could have Catherine speak, and then Kim, it sounds like you might have talked last month. I don't know if for the sake of time, well, you can figure out what fits best. And then when it comes to the letters, I'm voting yes on the nature letters, Robert. So,
okay, great.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to leave this running because it's recording, but sorry for dropping off. And thank you again for everyone for being here.
Okay, great. So let's continue with the orders of business on here. But yes, Dr. Thomasson, are you with us?
I am, thanks.
Why don't you take some time now, because I know that you don't want to listen to our treasury report and that kind of thing. So,
well, I might.
Well, it might be of interest. I know that.
Yes, I'm actually very excited to be here at this meeting. I am a North Tabor resident. I've lived here for 4 years, down the street from Sarah. I usually have a standing meeting on this Tuesday night, so it's been hard for me to come. But I've lived in the Northeast since 1986 in Portland. I'm running for the open seat for state representative because Barbara Smith-Warner is not running for re-election. I actually felt compelled to run because of the existential threat of climate change. We're all seeing the impacts of climate change, like wildfire and heat, that I had warned about in my role as an advocate over 20 years ago. I have a son and would like to see him and all of our children have a planet that can still support them. In the last 4 years, I've worked as chair of the Environmental Caucus of the state Democrats to advance climate policy like the Renewable Energy Bill, and to get things that we haven't quite achieved yet, like better building codes and electrification of transportation. I actually stopped practicing medicine about 10 years ago when I was working in the city as a primary care physician to serve as the executive director of Physicians for Social Responsibility in DC. So I did live there for 5.5 years, working primarily on climate change and other environmental issues. I feel as a physician, and also because I've worked in healthcare access issues, that I'll bring that expertise to the legislature, and as well as specifically advocating for mental health and addiction treatment that we so desperately need. And I also truly feel, of course, I'm sure you do as well, that housing is a health issue. At the state level, we can and should improve the system of rental assistance to keep people in their homes. And overall, we obviously need more housing, and specifically more affordable housing. I think affordable housing really needs to be integrated into the land use and transportation development plans that are currently being finalized across many metro areas in the state. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. I've been knocking on doors, and hopefully I will see more of you as I continue to do that. The May primary is the 17th of May.
I have a question. I know that previously, I think that in the pocket where you live, where Sarah lives, is a different district than most of the rest. It was a different district from most of the rest of North Tabor. Now, everything just got redistricted, and so I'm not quite sure where the lines are. Can you tell us, are you still basically just representing for us the portion north of Gleason?
No, it goes, it's really all of North Tabor. So,
okay, so the redistricting,
it moved over to 33rd, and east of 33rd, it goes down to Belmont in our, at about 42nd, it goes down to Belmont. And then it kind of zigzags back up through parts of Montevilla until it hits 205. And then on east of 205, it goes all the way out to 185th, and it's north of 205. North of I-84, excuse me.
Okay, good. So we have a single representative. Because we had to divide our attentions, between two different ones because the line went down the middle of North Tabor in the previous.
Got it.
Are you District 45 now then?
Yes,
Okay.
I have been. Anything north of, I live north of Gleason, so we were Barbara Smith Warner, House District 45.
Okay, because we had, who did we have before, Robert?
Confam.
Yeah. So, but she's representing a different district, or I mean, her district got shifted, and so she's still in the legislature.
Oh, is that true?
Right. Mhm. Yeah, she's done a great job. Very wonderful. Freshman representative has just done a ton of really great work.
Yeah, she was good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for visiting us, and you being a member of North Tabor neighborhood, you are welcome to maybe even join our board someday, but come to our meetings.
Thank you.
We try to make them interesting. This has been a good one. I'm glad we got the speaker about the Charter Commission. That's very important.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Let me look at the agenda again. Okay. March, let's just crank through some of this stuff real quick. March minutes. Everybody saw a copy of them. I'll hear a motion to accept the March minutes. Do I hear such a motion? You raise your hand.
Motion.
Okay, there. Do I hear a second? Okay, there's a second.
Ooh, second.
Second, Sarah. Yeah, we need board member seconding. And of course, you have to have been at the March meeting to vote on it. And I assume everybody read a copy. Okay, any discussion? No. All in favor of accepting the March minutes indicate somehow or other, raise your hand. Okay, so that is accepted. Treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report is, we have 2,469.43. You got that, Sarah? And we've had a couple of debits from MailChimp and Facebook, although I looked on Facebook and I didn't see anything on Facebook, so I'm not sure what that's about. We'll have to ask Jules. But we are getting a recurring monthly charge from MailChimp. We're gonna have to, see what that's about, ask her what that's what's going on with that.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, next is communications. Jules, is that you, I guess?
Yep, that's me. So the reoccurring, we couldn't purchase a bulk subscription for MailChimp, so it's going to be coming out of the monthly. It's going to be pinging us monthly for that. I believe it's somewhere in the
$11.
$11.
Thanks, Jules. I didn't see you here tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no sweat. I saw the Facebook thing come through too, and so remember how I tried to get some ads rolling at some point and it faltered, and then it went through, and so I think that was the charge there. It should have been for I think $24 or something, $25.
Okay, we had one in the first of March 1st, we had one for $6.80, and then we had another one on April 1st for $18.20. So it looks like that's coming out the first of every month as well.
Yeah, so whatever that initial setup was kind of clunky, and so they only it'll only send and serve, and it'll do it at a so sorry about that.
No, okay, I don't know what.
Yeah, I did just boost a post for the newsletter that went out today, so I believe that was for $35. So how Facebook works is it's not going to spend all of it, it's just going to really spend on its deliverability. So we'll probably see kind of another kind of small amount of money going through again sporadically. That will at some point add up to $35.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Thank you.
should we be, this stuff we should be able to use this for our communications funds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just what I was just going to ask. So anything that's remotely communications, we can take that out of the money we'll get from the city through Southeast Uplift.
Yeah.
And not have to spend our own,
Either we get reimbursed, we're probably, because it's reoccurring charges, and we'll put in for the application to get our communication funds, and then we'll just get reimbursed for those. So we should be okay. We're not.
I have a question, and it's not treasury related, but just to fit in here, we have documents that are due to the DOJ and Department of State, I think. When are those in the summer? When do those come due? Those things that we have to send in every year?
I remember
I just paid those. I just paid the DOJ and
Good, okay.
and then I filled in that other paperwork for Southeast Uplift, mailed that in a week or so ago.
Okay, so we're good on that. Okay, great. Anything else
Thanks,
on
Patty.
communications?
I have one question for Catherine. Catherine, could you put in the chat your email or not your email, but your website or something, so that when I do the blurb saying that you spoke with us, that I have some reference to have people be able to look at your platform or whatever.
Very good.
Thank you.
We're getting somebody's background noise.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Dr. Thomasson, we heard from you already. Let's see, Kim, I know you talked to us last month. Did you have some update about your candidacy that you were going to?
I've been doing a lot of interviews, and I just wanted to remind you all that my top 4 things that I'm very concerned about is, first of all, safety and sanitation for the city. Second, it would be the affordable housing and the houseless problem in Portland. Third would be our economy. I'd like to revitalize the downtown core. One of the ways I want to do that is just bring back some programs that worked, like Fairless Square and safety teams on mass transit. I have lots of different ideas. Fourth is climate. And I loved what Catherine was saying. And so climate challenges are another concern, but you guys have my website. It's kimcashforportland.com. You can check it out. And I just want to say again, I wasn't trying to be harsh about the Charter Commission. I just want to understand how that's going to all work out and how that's going to replace what we've had. And, you know, maybe we've outgrown the situation, but I'm just concerned as a resident, long time resident, how that's all going to play out, and want to make sure everyone has a voice.
Yeah, I think it's important that they hear, you know, diverse feedback, positive and negative, because they're going to have to defend the project. And I'm not sure, they're not really I mean, they came up with the commission. They're not responsible for the advertising, promotion, et cetera. That, you know, I'm not quite sure how that works out. But it is pretty complicated. People resist change. So I hope that you know, it does go through. But that is a type of thing that, because it's not a vote, you know, for a person for a position, we could take a position on that as a neighborhood association. So we can think about that when they finally publish it. It's not quite out yet. And if we want to, you know, go on record as supporting this change to the city charter, or we can decide to just stay neutral and just educate people. But that's for a later meeting. Okay, I think at least on this agenda here, the only other item are those air quality letters from the Cascadia Action Group. If you recall, last year we were sent a sheaf of those, mostly written by other neighborhood associations about air pollution sources in their neighborhoods, you know, asking them to address them. I'm our point of contact with the Cascadia group on that. And I did send those electronic copies of all those letters out to everybody. And I'm sure you read every single word of them. I read the first one or two, and they're all pretty much, well, pretty similar to what they were last year, just updated a little bit. There's nothing controversial in them. We are being asked to just add our little signature block to the list of like 40 other neighborhood associations that have signed on to it. So I will assume that you're at least familiar with it. And so I would ask for a motion to allow them to put our name among the signatories there. Do I hear such a motion?
Motion.
Okay, it's moved. Do I hear a second? Okay, Lars seconds. Is there any discussion, anything you want to ask about them? You all have copies of the actual letters, so you're welcome to, you know, plow through them. A lot of it's pretty technical about air pollution and particle size and a bunch of other stuff, but it's important, particularly for us. We live close to the freeway here. We get a lot of air pollution that we're not probably aware of. So, okay, so all in favor then of accepting the putting our name on them? Everybody raise your hand on the board. Cool. And we do have a quorum, right, Sarah? Yeah, okay. Okay, so I will notify them that they can go ahead and stick our signature block on there.
Do we, Robert, do we want to post any of them on our website?
Well, we can certainly do that, or we can put I'm sure, well, no, actually, I think that there's some degree of confidentiality about those.
Okay.
We were asked to look at them because they really are a letter from, you know, Neighborhood Association X to Bullseye Glass or to some trucking company. So yeah, I think we were asked to peruse them ourselves, make a decision whether we want to sign on to them. But yeah, they're not for us. It's not our place to distribute them out.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know if we wanted
That's a good
to.
question. And it jogged my memory that, yeah, we're supposed to kind of, you know, not publicize them ourselves.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Is there any other new business? It looks like we ran through the rest of the agenda here pretty quickly.
Good.
Okay. I guess I'll hear a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to move to adjourn? Oh, Lars, Patty seconds. Okay, all in favor? We're done. Thank you very much. It's been great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great meeting
Thanks
you
very much.
guys. Good to
See you
see
next time.
you.
Take care.
Nice
Good
seeing you.
job.
Thank you. It was a great
Bye.
meeting. Bye.
Bye-bye.